Getting whacked with tinnitus like I did, sort of just out of left field, it freaked me out. There's no question about it. It kept me up at night. I couldn't sleep. I remember saying to my wife, it's like, I can see how people would kill themselves over this. This is horrible.
Steve, the corporate attorney who got better with tinnitus, who's now sharing his story. So Steve, a lot of folks work in an office. A lot of folks may be lawyers, knowledge workers, people who need to focus, people who are often in a quiet office environment. What's your advice to people who also spend 8 hours a day?
All I can say is when you get to a point of your general sense of it's okay. If it's buzzing right now, that's not an issue because I've been there before. I've done that. I know that if I start reading this memo or I'm starting talking on the phone or something, I'm going to be able to do that. And it's not going to interfere with it. It's so much of a mental state.
We're here today with Steve. Steve's initial tinnitus functional index score, where we measure tinnitus from 1 to 100. His initial score was a 75 out of 100, which is a very serious problem. His most recent score on a scale of 1 to 100 was an 8 out of 100. That's a dramatic reduction. He's going to share exactly what happened. And hopefully, if you're listening, this will give you the hope, the encouragement, and some of the tactics and the actionable steps that you need. So, Steve, let's start by giving an introduction. Steve, what do you do for work? Tell us about yourself before we get beginning.
Oh, I am just had my 66th birthday in July, and I'm a corporate attorney, and I've been practicing law for close to 40 years and live in the Boston area. 6 kids, happily married. My youngest is 22. My oldest is 38. So lots going on in my life throughout the years.
Busy man and making a big impact. So let's talk about your ears now. First, give us an update. When you first met with us, your tinnitus was really severe. When we last met with you, it was very mild. Has it remained mild? And talk to us about what are your symptoms these days?
Yeah. I had tinnitus at a very low level for a number of years. It was not an issue. It was more a curiosity. It was something that was just there in the background that I'd hear maybe if I was going to bed or just lying down doing some stretching or whatever. And then literally one night it just exploded in terms of the invasiveness, the volume of the sound. Don't ask me why. I do have some some neck issues in terms of deteriorating discs. Could that be a contributor? Maybe. It just blew up on me in a day. And given my line of work, I feel that I'm a pretty in control kind of guy with my emotions and whatnot and managing stress. But getting whacked with tinnitus like I did, sort of just out of left field, it freaked me out. There's no question about it. It kept me up at night. I couldn't sleep. I remember saying to my wife, it's like, I can see how people would kill themselves over this. This is horrible. We're in the Boston area, lots of high level medical resources. I went to Mass Eye and Ear, which is part of the Mass General Hospital, which is, a highly regarded medical center. They have a tinnitus clinic. I got a hearing test. I had, some deterioration at high frequency. The clinician at the time said, yeah, you're sort of on the cusp of hearing aids. And then he talked to me about things that they could do. He was talking about with sound therapy. And then I said, well, that sounds great. When can we get started? And he said, well, make an appointment. And the first appointment was 6 months in the future. And I said, I can't live with this for another 6 months. And my wife did some research. She's found Treble Health. I called up. I got connected with Dr. Suzanne. I got my hearing aids with some enhancement for hearing as well as the sound therapy. And I remember the first call I had with her, and that was probably about a year ago. And I said, we've got a trip planned to visit the youngest kid who's studying abroad, and we're trying to leave the end of October. She says, that won't be a problem. You'll be fine by that. You'll be fine by then. So I think that getting put in touch with someone who was, in this case, Dr. Suzanne, who could talk to me about what was going on, could describe a path to a better place, and then getting the hands-on treatment in terms of the maskers, the hearing aids with the sound therapy. I'll tell you, one really big game changer was having the whole kit that comes from Treble Health, not only the hearing aids, but the headband for nighttime wear. And that was huge for me because I knew I could go to bed and I could go to sleep. And before I had the headband, as an accessory, the anxiety over whether I was going to be able to sleep at night or actually knowing I'm not going to be able to sleep at night, that just ramps up everything, right? So once I was sort of plugged into, hey, I've got resources, I've got something that I know is going to help me go to sleep at night, that takes down the anxiety and everything what we've talked about in terms of the mind, brain. The anxiety goes down, the tinnitus goes down. We traveled to the Czech Republic without any problem in October. By January or so, I think I was really feeling like, yeah, I'm in control of this. Now, there's a mystery aspect to tinnitus. I don't know why it comes and goes sometimes. I mean, I can hypothesize, if I'm under a lot of stress, if I hadn't slept well, my neck is bothering me. Yeah, sometimes it seems to be worse, but sometimes I can have all of that and it's okay. But the absence of the anxiety is, I think, what really is transformational. And then it does reduce the volume of the sound or the frequency of it. I mean, I'm at a point now where, I may not wear my hearing aids all weekend, maybe because, absence of work, being relaxed. And now there's an expectation of like, yeah, I can just go natural over the Saturday and Sunday and not have issues. But there's so much that just depends on the mindset. Everything we were talking about mindset is true, but you need to be given the tools to help facilitate the process that's going to get you to a positive mindset. And expectations are everything. You go to bed, you're going to go to sleep. You hit the weekend, you're going to be feeling well. On days that I have it, sitting here today, I can hear the sounds in my ear, but it's no big deal. It's no big deal. And I know I'm going to go home in another half hour or so, have dinner, unwind, go to bed. It's all cool. No.
Hey guys, quick interruption from today's podcast. If you're dealing with the day-to-day stress of tinnitus and have been told there's not much you can do from other doctors, I want to let you know that we offer a free consultation with a specialist from Treble Health where we can discuss your tinnitus case and offer some potential solutions. See the link on the screen right there where you can book a free call and get help from a specialist who can take the next steps in finding relief. Click the link right there. Now, back to the podcast. I was reviewing the scores that we measure tinnitus, and the way we do it is when we have a new patient, we have you complete this comprehensive questionnaire. It's evidence-based. Researchers use it. Scientists use it. Doctors like ourselves use it. It gives the tinnitus a score of 1 to 100. Like I said, you started out as 75, which is a serious problem. But it also breaks it down into the different subcategories. And the subcategories that were the worst for you, or the ones that needed work, where the tinnitus was intrusive, that you did not have a sense of control over it. It was affecting your sleep, it was affecting your relaxation, and it was causing emotional distress. Does that resonate?
That's absolutely where I was when I was filling out those questionnaires to start. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then looking at it, the most recent score, intrusiveness went from an 87 to a 23. Anything below 30 is mild and really not that big of an issue from the research. Sense of control went from an 87 to a 27. Sleep went from an 80 to a 0. We'll talk about that. Relaxation went from an 80 to a 3. Emotional distress went from a 90 to a 0. Those are some really big changes. So talk to us about how did that happen? Like, for someone who wants to get there, can you give them some advice or share what worked for you?
For me, the headband was a huge component because I knew I would put that on, and I'm no tech genius, but I was able to figure out how to download some apps on on background sounds. And right from the first night, I knew I'd put that on and it would enable me to just block out the tinnitus and go to sleep. And, once I had the expectation that sleep was no longer an issue, that reduced the anxiety across the board. And again, because, all right, maybe you're having it during the day. Well, I've gone through it long enough to know it may come and go during the day. But even if it's going strong when I go to bed, I'm still going to be able to go to sleep. And just taking sleep off the table as something to be anxious about just changes everything. At least for me, it did. That one piece of equipment, the headband, was really, really instrumental in improving my situation.
Excellent. We have a headband right here, one of the Treble Health headbands, and our newest versions of this, we actually created an adjustable band on the back of it. So if anyone is interested in that, go to our website, treblehealth.com, or send an email to contact@treblehealth.com. We'll be able to direct you towards that. Steve, how about the intrusiveness, the sense of control? These are more psychological or negative mental states,
Right.
lack of control, intrusiveness, can't escape the sound. They affect the nervous system. They put our body in a fight or flight. Talk to us about how that changed over time.
In my mind, when I talk about intrusiveness, part of it is the sound there? Is it loud? And is it preventing me from being able to concentrate on my work if I'm at work, or to relax if I'm at home? Whatever it is it intruding in my what I'm otherwise trying to do? And at least as important was the mindset of, even if I have it, and even if it's going great guns, it's not going to get me all amped up in terms of anxiety about, oh my gosh, this isn't going to go away. What am I going to do tonight when I'm trying to go to sleep? And again, even if you have it, I could say it's physically still, loud and there, but it's not intrusive in terms of interfering with my daily activities.
So, Steve, a lot of folks work in an office. A lot of folks may be lawyers, they knowledge workers, people who need to focus, people who are often in a quiet office environment. Now, I hear a lot of people saying, hey, when I'm really deep in my work, it's almost like the tinnitus isn't there.
Yeah.
But I can see how that's sort of a trap, because they say, yeah, when I'm focused, it doesn't bother me, but every other time it bothers me. So what's your advice to people who also spend 8 hours a day
Yeah.
in an office?
Yeah. It can be a bit of a mind game, because what I found at one point early on, that when I went into meetings and I had multiple people around a table talking about something, or even in a one-on-one, but especially if it was multiple parties at the table, my mind was focused in other areas, and it was focused in multiple, different people talking about different things. And I found that it wasn't always the case, but it was very, very often the case, that when I ended the meeting, it was like, oh, my tinnitus is gone. So the concentration, definitely, if you can get really focused, yeah, that seems to be a way of getting rid of the tinnitus. But then you have to ask the question of, like, how can I begin the concentration piece of it if I have the tinnitus? Is it going to prevent me from starting up in terms of what I need to do? And all I can say is, when you get to a point of your general sense of it's okay, if it's buzzing right now, that's not an issue, because I've been there before. I've done that. I know that if I start reading this memo, or I'm starting, talking on the phone or something, I'm going to be able to do that, and it's not going to interfere with it. It's so much of a mental state. Being in the office in the early days, it was really bad, because it was preventing me from concentrating. I remember leaving the office, having to go for a walk, trying to calm myself down. And again, being a guy who, at least traditionally, in terms of how I felt about myself, was like, yeah, I don't freak out over things. I manage the stressors of life. That's part of what I do for a living. But in the early days, it was really knocking me for a loop. But then once you start to feel there's a resolution to this, and that's where, the treatment and working with someone like Dr. Suzanne helps just get you to have a sense of, I guess, faith in the process. Like, I know you're going to help me work through this.
Mm.
And then once you feel, you've reached that point, you don't get knocked off stride, even if you have tinnitus going on at a particular, time.
Mm. A lot of people here listening won't work with Dr. Suzanne. And a lot of people here maybe can't afford a program or need some guidance. So imagine you have a microphone, you're in a room, you're in a banquet hall here. There's 200 people with tinnitus who come and they say, yeah, I'm here because I want to learn from people who have been down this road so that it can be easier, less painful, and it can happen faster for me of getting relief. What would you say to them based on what you learned with Dr. Suzanne in your own case?
I would talk about at least some of the useful tools that I found, even if there's financial pressures in terms of being able to, buy a high-end pair of hearing aids with the treatment and whatnot. I think some of the CBD relaxation techniques can be, very helpful. And I would say if the anxiety is partially or significantly attributable to not being able to sleep, I would say if you do nothing else, go out and get a headband. You can get these devices on the internet, right? And try to put some real tools in their hands that could make a difference in terms of dealing with the issues.
Absolutely. Okay. So in addition to the headband, Steve, you mentioned these CBT techniques. Walk us through one or two of them that helped you. And I think this is important for people to kind of hear this from your perspective of what it feels like or what it is.
I think I utilized some very basic breathing techniques for me. If I recall correctly, it was visualizing sort of the intake of whether it's up the nasal passages, out of the mouth, the other way around, but sort of just visualizing in your mind that circulation. I found that to be very helpful. I found if I was lying down, say it was, bedtime or whatnot, technique of consciously relaxing sort of each part of your body, starting from your toes and your feet and moving all the way up progressively for your entire body. I think, a big part of it is the concentration that you are expending in doing the exercise, whether it's the breathing or sort of the relaxation technique in terms of your going through your all of the muscle groups in your body, getting your mind off of what was creating the anxiety to begin with. So I found both of those to be helpful to just get it amped down to that level that was really interfering.
Definitely. Guys, so yeah, you can try that for free right now. YouTube, search CBT for tinnitus, or just cognitive behavioral therapy for anxiety techniques I can try today. Those are available right now. So, Steve, I love that. Some basic sound therapy, whether it's through a sleep band like the one I'm holding here, or a high quality sound machine. Those can be very helpful and they're easy to get started with. Or if someone has an iPhone, there's actually a setting called background sounds, which can play white noise, pink noise, these kinds of sound therapies that can help us just from your phone right now. You can get that started in the next 10 minutes. And then the CBT techniques as well. I love that. Let's open it up for some questions. Steve, the first question is coming from Julie. Julie asks, how long did it take for you to quote unquote recover? And maybe define what recovery meant for you.
So, like I said, it really sort of blew up on me about a year ago, end of July, and I think I was working with Treble Health by probably the end of August. I took trip abroad at the end of October, so September, October. I'd say within 6 weeks, I was dramatically different in a much, much better place and being able to travel internationally without any fear or anxiety of, what if my head's exploding while I'm on the plane or something like that.
Thank you. And that's faster than most patients. You started treatment relatively fast, which is good because early intervention is generally a good thing in healthcare. But you're being able to say 2 months later, 3 months later, I'm feeling a lot better. That's quicker than most. Just wanted to add that. So glad that worked out for you. Howard asks, Steve, were you able to totally mask your tinnitus while sleeping, or could you still hear it when you were trying to fall asleep with the headband?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for the most part, if I recall correctly, sort of the instruction on sort of that masking is you don't want to necessarily drown it out completely, but you sort of want it, right underneath that you could still hear the tinnitus, but you've got the masking sound going. And for me, what I would then do is I'd be focusing on the masking sound so that in my mind, eventually, fairly soon, because that's what I was focusing on, that's all I'd really hear. So objectively speaking, when I first put on the headband and whatnot, I didn't completely drown out the tinnitus, but I was just like a little bit below that. But then I totally focus on that masking sound, and that in effect blocks out the tinnitus. And it's just for me, it's a much calmer sound because it's something that I know I control. I turn it on and off from the head, so it's not something that's out there. The tinnitus beyond my control. The masking sound is in my hands. And so I think that also just helps create a much more relaxed state, because that sound doesn't bother you because you're the one creating that sound.
Steve, last question. This is from Cheryl. Cheryl says, "Hey, Steve, if I already have a sound in my brain, then why would I want to hear another sound with sound therapy?" You were just touching on it.
It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but for me anyway, it is this element of this is a sound that I control. I turn it on and off. It's not just something that's been superimposed on me, ringing in my ears. And so it just, for me, strikes me as a calming influence, because I focus on that, which does effectively block out or exclude the sound that is creating the bad vibes, the bad mental state. And I'm focusing on a sound that I control, and it's a relaxing experience as opposed to, an anxiety inducing experience.
Great answer. Great answer. Well, Steve, I'd like to give you the last word here. For someone listening, what is your main takeaway? What is the main message you want to share to people with tinnitus listening today?
Be hopeful and try to be optimistic. And I can appreciate how bad it can be when you're at the depths of the feelings. But there is a path forward. You got to get yourself on that path. And if you really go after it and are conscientious about it, and you've got some great resources around you, I think, through Treble Health and whatnot, you can make it. You can absolutely get to a point where this is not something that's interfering with your life.
Steve, thank you so much. I'm from Rhode Island, by the way. You see it from Massachusetts, so we're basically neighbors. Thank you so much for sharing. You did wonderful. Let's give a virtual round of applause and show some love to Steve, the corporate attorney who got better with tinnitus, who's now sharing his story. Steve, thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon, all right?
Thanks for having me, Dr. Ben.
You're welcome.
Take care.